Hi, I'm Kirsten, the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast host. Thank you for listening, and I hope these stories and conversations bring you comfort and help you feel less alone. Enjoy this episode. Hi, Denise. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited for you to be here.
Hi, Kirsten. I'm so grateful and honored to be here. Like I said before, I think what you're doing is amazing, and I think we need way more of these spaces to have this conversation. So, yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. I truly appreciate you taking the time, and you experienced an ectopic pregnancy back during COVID. And we'll get into that, but I also want to share that you're creating a film surrounding your experience and some of the trauma and other things that happened following your ectopic pregnancy. So if we could start, let's just take it back to the beginning, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Okay, where do we start? I guess I would start. It happened in 2020. You're right, and I was, God, I was 22 at the time. I was about to turn 23. I was very young, and I had just gotten a copper IUD, which is a big part of this whole traumatic experience, because I had been on birth control since I was a teenager. I have PCOS, and right away at 14 they put me on birth control. And then growing up, after it was like 7-8 years, I was like, I just kind of feel like I want to get off birth control. It wasn't feeling great in my body, and so I started exploring other options for birth control. And I came across the copper IUD, where they said, oh, it's non-hormonal and it's more than 99% sure. And I was like, oh my God, like this sounds like a great option. And so I got that. And a few months later, I'm just doing my own life. And I remember the first time I noticed something. I was working out, and I was doing some ab crunches. And I remember feeling like a sharp pain on my right ovary. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But having PCOS, sometimes I have cyst on my ovaries, so it kind of could feel similar. And I just didn't think anything about it. Definitely the last thing that came across my mind is it's a pregnancy. And so kind of 2 weeks passed, and then my partner at the time was like, hey, I thought your period was supposed to come a couple of weeks ago. And at that time I was not tracking my cycle or anything. I was like, oh my gosh, like you're right, that's very weird. And he said, well, maybe we should take a pregnancy test. And I was the one who said, no, that's impossible. I have an IUD. They said it's more than 99% sure. But my period didn't come, and I was like, sure, let's do it. So we took a pregnancy test, and gosh, both our faces when it was positive, we were both completely shocked.
Yeah,
Because,
what a big
yeah,
surprise that would be.
absolutely. It was not something that we were planning on, and it was something that they kind of, they made it seem like it was almost impossible for it to happen. So I had no idea what to do at that moment. And I was like, I don't even know what that looks like. I have an IUD. Like, what does this pregnancy look like? So at the time, like I said, I was very young, and I had no health insurance. I had no money. It was so scary. I'm like, where do I even go? So that same day, I headed to Planned Parenthood, which I'm very grateful that they were there, because again, I had no money and nothing else, and that was the only thing available to me. And I went in there and I told them, oh, I have an IUD and I'm pregnant. And the question started. They seemed as confused as my partner and I. They were like, you have an IUD, how are you pregnant? And I'm like, I don't know. I have the same questions as you do. And
Right.
they took a pregnancy test, and they confirmed it. And right away they were like, you have to go to the ER right now. And I was shocked. I'm like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, there's a high chance that it's an ectopic pregnancy because you have an IUD. And
Oh.
no, I get all this information comes out of nowhere. I have no idea what that means. They kind of explained it to me. So I called my partner and we both rushed to a public hospital here in Los Angeles, went to the ER, and it was COVID. And so we got there and partners could not go in. Nobody could go in.
Gosh, that's so sad.
Absolutely, because I do think these experiences in themselves are already scary enough.
Yes.
Anytime, right, that you have any medical emergency is scary. So yeah, and I imagine you get there and they're like, nope, you can't come in. You stay at the door. Yeah, and then
So Planned Parenthood didn't give you an ultrasound or anything. They just thought, okay, if you have an IUD and you're pregnant, this is what could be possible.
Yeah, because they said if it is an ectopic pregnancy, you might need immediate intervention, and we don't have the tools for that. So I think the best you can do is just go as soon as possible to the ER.
Well, that's great that they sent you right away, just in case you were in danger of something seriously being wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. My experience there was incredible. Like I'm very grateful for them and for guiding me through all of it, at least at the beginning stages. So yeah, that was great. Yeah, and then we arrived at the hospital and I again explained the whole situation, and again the faces of everybody that I was explaining to, like they always looked confused. Like, and the question again, they kept saying, but you have an IUD. Like they didn't believe what I was saying, and I'm like, I honestly am as confused as you, but like, believe me, I think this is what's happening. And again, there they took another pregnancy test, and they were like, well, we have to do an ultrasound right away to see what is happening. And then they did that. And they were not able to find anything, which that became even scarier at the time. They were like, usually like we see something on the fallopian tube or we would see something in the uterus. We see nothing. And so at that point, they like gave me several options. They said they had seen something potentially on an ovary, which again, they said it was rare for an ectopic pregnancy. But they were like, we have two options. We either wait, but it's dangerous to wait because we don't know, it could rupture and we don't know where it is. We could go into surgery and we could look up, internally where it is, but that also comes with a lot of problems. One of them being you could lose one of your fallopian tubes and ovaries, and we could still not find it. That was the thing that scared me the most. And another one was we do a DNC, we confirm that it is not in the uterus, and then we go into medication, methotrexate. And that's the choice I went with. It seemed at the time, okay, it seems like right now I'm not in extreme danger or in an emergency situation at this exact moment. So I think we should do that. And yeah, that was the choice. They gave me the medication, had the DNC, which was a very hard experience. Something that I really remember of those moments is they kept asking me if the pregnancy was planned or unplanned, which I thought was a very weird thing to keep asking.
And then it's very irrelevant to the situation.
I absolutely agree. And I remember them telling each other, because there were so many nurses and doctors and people around, and they kept telling each other, oh, it's an unplanned pregnancy. And it just felt so out of touch. And I mean, maybe it was, my imagination at that moment, but it really did feel like they were saying it as like, oh, it doesn't matter as much as a planned pregnancy, which, like at that moment, yeah, it was unplanned, but gosh, like I've always wanted to be a mom. And although it was unplanned, like it was still hard. And I wish that pregnancy could have worked out either way. So,
that doesn't seem very caring and compassionate for them to say that more than once. And, it just doesn't seem like that's important.
Yeah.
For the situation itself. It's you need care, and that's what's important.
Yeah, I wonder. I think it's like, they're trying to get data,
Mm.
on these things. I don't know. That's my only explanation. But I agree with you. And a big part that I do want to talk about in the movie is that, because my medical experience was very traumatic, and beyond, being alone there, and the
Mhm.
ectopic pregnancy, like I did feel like um, the doctors and nurses that treated me, although I'm super grateful for them, I don't think they were very prepared to handle the emotional situation.
Mm.
There were so many things that were said or were done that I felt like um, were not helpful at all for the emotional support of a woman going through a situation like that. Um,
Right.
and I think it's important to talk about it. In the movie, it's something that I really want the audiences to see what it actually felt to be going through that.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so many unspoken things that happen throughout this entire experience, including the medical care and the team members that provide that care. I
Yeah,
don't think, because it's such an unspoken topic, and um, it's very confusing politically, I
yeah,
think that fades into the medical education around the diagnosis and, you know, what may be triggering to a woman in this situation, what may not. And I just think there's so much gray to this black and white thing. Does that make
yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, it was interesting because also a lot of the doctors and nurses were women. I mean, there were men, but you think, oh, a woman, I think could be able to relate to this and be like, oh my gosh, there's this like person going through this thing, that even if I have not gone through, I can relate in some capacity.
Mhm.
And still, it seemed like a very standard procedure what was
Mhm.
happening, right? And they were just asking the standard questions. But even beyond that, another thing that kept being repeated was how rare it was, and they kept bringing, like a medical student and talking in front of me like I was some like medical subject, like, oh, she's pregnant with an IUD. This is so rare. They even said, it's like being struck by lightning. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, like, I'm sure this is rare and I'm sure you don't see this often, but I'm a person, I'm going through this, and this is a very tough time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is the time to keep repeating this and talking about this.
Yes, 100%. There's such a difference between saying it in front of the patient and saying it behind closed doors because, clearly those words affected you, and we're still talking about it 5 years later.
Yeah.
It is still trauma for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do
definitely.
you do any blood work throughout
Yeah.
time frame?
Yeah, lots of it. Which I'm someone who is I hate needles.
Yeah, I hate them too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure you experience the same. um yeah, I mean, I did 2 rounds of medication methotrexate because the first
Okay.
one did not work, so the
Okay.
whole process was a whole month long.
Mm.
Sometimes the first one works, but they have to monitor you. I don't remember how often, but I know I went to that hospital a lot within those 2 weeks. I don't know if it was every 2 or 3 days, something like that. And they have to draw blood, and then they check your HCG levels.
Mhm.
And yeah, and mine kept going up. And
Oh, no.
then yeah, and week 2 they gave me again the 2 options. They're like, okay, now we can go into surgery, but the same thing, like, it might fix it, it might not, and like there's more potential of losing an ovary or fallopian tube, or
Mhm.
we can do a second round. They said if that second round doesn't work, then we definitely will do surgery, but we give you this one more chance. And
Mhm.
I prayed. I was like, I hope this second round works, and I went with that route.
Yeah,
And it did work. It did end up.
that's
Um,
great. By your second dose did you start seeing the numbers go down?
Yes, that's
Okay.
when we started seeing the numbers go down, and it just continued for about 2 more weeks until they were almost at zero.
Okay. Did they ever tell you how many weeks you were?
Yes, it was 7 weeks. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
so it
that
was
seems to be
pretty.
the sweet spot for when women find out that it's
Yeah,
ectopic and get treatment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, another reason why it made them think it was ectopic, it was because the HCG levels were very low for 7 weeks,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's the other reason where they were like, no, that does seem like it's an ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah. Mine were also very low. I
Mhm.
also received methotrexate.
Oh,
I
okay.
only needed one dose, thankfully, but I always think that maybe I just needed the one dose because my numbers were so low, but
Yeah.
you just never know. There's so many unknowns in the situation, and every woman's story is different, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. That's that's what's been fascinating to me through this whole thing, and it's been this whole new, world that I just, again, if you don't go through it, you don't know women are going through this. But when I was going through it, it was the most isolating experience of my life, and that's another thing that I want to talk about in the movie, because I think whether you have a supportive partner or family or whatever, it's still something that's happening to you in your body,
Hmm.
and it's very hard for other people to fully understand the emotional and physical pain that we go through.
Hmm.
um, and so I joined an ectopic pregnancy group on Facebook because I just needed somebody who was going through the same thing. It felt like nobody around me understood. And reading all those stories, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. All these women are going through all these different, women with higher levels than me that had ruptured earlier, and so many women that had to be rushed into surgery that had almost lost their lives. And there's many women who have lost their lives because they did not act quick enough, or the intervention was not done quick enough. Um, so yeah, and while being there, not only that, but I started to seeing an incredible amount of stories of women in these unsupportive, even abusive relationships, which is one of the main things that also inspired this film, where I was just mind blown. I'm like, you're going through this, traumatic health experience, medical experience, and it's already emotionally hard enough, and then they are having to deal with these things at home too.
Hmm.
um and yeah, it was heartbreaking to see.
Hmm. Yeah, I've met several women, more than several women, that experience their partners leaving them and were emotionally abusive. And I just can't imagine experiencing the trauma and isolation, but then having a partner that's non existent or treating you poorly during a time when you need the support the most.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've been really researching for the film, because a big factor in if somebody will develop PTSD from medical things is in the support that they have around them, right? It's not necessarily the actual medical procedure, but is there somebody around that is emotionally supporting them? um and obviously there's just a lot of women out there that don't have that.
Mm-mm.
And it's very sad, because especially if it's coming from your partner, who is supposed to be the person that's supposed to keep you safe and protect you and be there for you, it's just a very heartbreaking experience.
It's
Yeah.
really heartbreaking. How did you get through your treatments and your weeks and months following?
um Honestly, it feels like a blur. I did start therapy after a few months, which I think gosh, like my therapist, like, he saved me. Like that's the person that I stopped doing therapy with him like 3 years ago, after 2 years with him. But to this day, I think about him and how if it wasn't for him, I don't know what would be of me. But it was really hard. I mean, that specifically that month, because they kept telling me, they put you on this diet, you can't have folic acid. Most of the food has it, so you're very limited. And then they were like, well, also, like, you should avoid as much movement as possible. So I went into this very deep depression. I just remember just feeling like this out of body experience where it felt like things were just happening to me. um, but to me, the most shocking thing of all this, which I think, like, when we watch movies and we see this on screen many times, like any traumatic event, we see people going into this despair and crying and all these things. But I just remember honestly feeling numb. And then that's an experience that I think a lot of women also go through, and everybody reacts different for sure. But for me, it was just this feeling of numbness and this out of body experience, and just feeling like I was just, this body through space doing things, but really feeling nothing. Just like this deep sadness, if something that I couldn't externalize. So that's something that I also want to add to this film. This feeling. I have a whole sequence in the film that's like through the female characters' POV, in which I want them to feel like this isolation, in the hospital, how like everything is happening around you, but it's like not to you, although it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember experiencing something very similar.
Yeah.
And it almost seemed like my world stopped, but the rest of the world kept going. And you're right. It was such a blur. I mean, I think back, my ectopic was 2022. And I think back during that time, and I don't know how I got through that. I think it helped because this is an unexpected situation. It's something that's out of your control. If I knew, if I knew that I was going to experience this, I wouldn't have been able to prepare properly.
Right.
And if I think of myself today, I don't know how I would get through it, because it was just so traumatic. And yeah, my whole world just stopped. And I don't know how I would get through that today. And I know I would, because I was strong enough to do it then.
You
And
have to, right?
Yeah, I'm stronger because of the situation now. But it's just such a mental and physical effort to get through it.
Yeah. Did you get time off work, or did you have to go to work right away?
I'm one of those people that needs distraction to get through things. And I remember when I had to go get methotrexate right away, I took the afternoon off of work, and then I went right back to work the next day.
Wow.
I just got right back into things to try and keep my mind going. So I had less space to think of the situation. But thinking back, I wish I took some time to focus on what was actually going on and to focus on myself. I also got a therapist during that time because of the deep depression and all of the emotions really that follow. But therapy helped a lot. My husband and family members were a big support system. And I will say working helped in a way, but I do think I would have done it differently looking back, work-wise.
Right. Well, at that time, it was your coping mechanism, right? Just feeling that distraction. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
What about you? Did you go back to work, or what were you doing at 22?
Yeah, so when that happened, so I'm an actress, filmmaker. So at that time I was like just starting out. I had moved to LA like two years prior. So I was like very much struggling, and so I was babysitting. I was doing nanny work, which at that time it just made it even harder because I'm taking care of these kids, and God, they were like the sweetest kids, but this happens, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't be around children right now. So I left my job, and I don't know if it's a good thing or not. I mean, maybe having something to distract me would have been good at the time, because it was like 3 months in which I had no job, and I just like, all I had was be home and sulk and be
Mhm.
sad. And so yeah, and then after 3 months, I just told myself, I'm like, you just can't continue like this. I saw where it was going, and it was such a dark place that I was like, let's make a positive out of this in however way I can. Like, I have to get out of this. And that's when I started my business. That is something that I'm doing right now, which is the Actor's Vow. I have an online acting school, and back then it also started as a podcast. So I started doing all that work 3 months after. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you still do it today?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
came out of that, and to this day, I have my online acting school, which is something that I do once a week. Teach students while I'm not on set and working. So yeah,
Oh, amazing. You'll have to send me that link so I can
yes,
add it to the notes.
I
That's really
will. Yeah.
cool. So tell me a little bit about the film
Mhm.
Enough that you're working on and how that came about.
Um, well, I went to school for acting, and I had a specialization in directing. And so I always have been into, acting, filmmaking. I started acting when I was 7 years old. So it's really all I've ever known and all I knew I wanted to do. And I started in the theater. But then when I graduated, I came to Los Angeles, and I wanted to pursue more of the filmmaking side of it. And I've always had a bunch of ideas for like scripts and things I wanted to direct. But this might sound weird for somebody who maybe is not in this industry, but every time you go through something emotional, you think, okay, this could make a great story, or this is something that needs to be shared. And I remembered, a few months after going through my ectopic pregnancy, I thought, okay, I need to share this story. This is I just feel like these conversations need to be had. I feel like a lot of women, like I said, that Facebook group really inspired me, are going through this. And how did I not know about this before going through it? I felt this needs to be talked about. But at the time, like I said, I was in such a bad mental space that I couldn't even share it. Really, at the time, only my partner knew, my parents knew, and my partner's family knew. I didn't even tell my best friends. I just didn't want to share it and talk about it. I felt like the little people I had shared, there was so much misinformation going around, and there were some comments that, although I'm sure coming from a loving space, were hurtful. So I just don't want to have to explain all these things. So it's taken me 5 years now to get to a space where I feel like I can talk about it, and a space where I feel like I'm ready to share these things.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, I mean, the story follows. It's inspired by my events, but also many other stories that I've heard out there. And it's just this young woman who is married and finds out she has an ectopic pregnancy, and as she's recovering from it, the whole arc of the movie is all one night, and it's her finding out that her husband has cheated on her. And through all of it, we start having the flashbacks of the ectopic pregnancy, of the hospital, of the medical trauma, and she's basically intertwining all those thoughts of, this is what I'm dealing with, but also this is what is being presented to me right now. And little by little, as the film advances, we start seeing the toxic relationship they have, and how he's not treating her that well. But also we go back to a flashback on when they met, and he's so sweet and he's treating her so well, right? And the idea is to show the complexity of all those things, right? Because nobody's just, oh, this person is abusive, why didn't people say, why didn't she just leave, or things like that. And it's so complex, it's like women might be going through financial hardships, through medical trauma, through so many things. Relationships are complex. It's never just, it's rarely black and white, right? And there's the trauma bond too that they have together after going through an ectopic pregnancy and many other things. So yeah, and the film is about what is she going to do, right? Is she going to continue that generational trauma? That's also another part that's in the movie, how she grew up experiencing those things, and a dad that also was not supportive to the mom, and so all those flashbacks and all those things also are coming back to her and are part of her decision making. And in the end, it's about that. It's the question of like, are you going to walk away? Like, what does it take for you to walk away and want something better for yourself?
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. I really, really appreciate you bringing light to these hard conversations and stories, because they happen all around us, yet nobody talks about it because it's abnormal and personal.
Yeah.
But they need to be talked about in order to normalize it and make it a less isolated and traumatic situation. You need
Absolutely.
the support system. And the more we all speak about not only ectopic pregnancies, but trauma in general, the more normalized it'll be to talk about these things. And it'll be easier for the next generation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a big factor for all this kind of trauma is trauma isolates you. Like when you're going through trauma, you tend to isolate yourself, but what we need is community. What we need is to talk about it. And I mean, humans are made for that community, and I think there's no better way of healing. And so it's very ironic that when we go through things to that, we tend to do the opposite. But I think you're right. The more we talk about it, the more people know how to deal with the situations and be there for each other when anybody goes through it.
Definitely. And I think, similar to what you just said, talking about it heals the situation yourself, and feeling like you're helping other people also means you're helping yourself. And I mean, that's really what it's all about, sharing stories to connect with others and help others through your own stories and experiences. And I feel like that's exactly what you're doing. And I commend you for doing that, because I know how tough it is, not only to talk about it, but I can't imagine all the hours you put in to planning and organizing this film.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I think art has healed me in so many ways. It's gotten me through so many hard things in my life. And I do think that, sometimes people are like, oh, it's just a movie or whatever. But um, I mean, we've all cried with a movie, we've all been touched with a movie or identified with a character and like related to them. And maybe that has changed our view on things. Movies can be educational. Movies can touch people on such deep levels. Then like just maybe if you read it on an Instagram post, it does nothing. But if you watch a movie and it touches you on an emotional level, then maybe it changes something in you. So I do think that art is made for this, and we should be telling these stories that matter, if we have the means to do it.
Yes, 100%. And I do want to highlight the crowdfunding aspect of this movie. There's only a little over a week left to
Yeah.
reach your number. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're currently crowdfunding. We're crowdfunding $10,000 to make the film. It's going to be a 2-day shoot here in Los Angeles, and gosh, I'm so grateful. I have lots of friends in the industry and like crew and actors, and a lot of them have very kindly volunteered to help. But still, making a movie is a lot of money. Just locations and rentals and the many professionals that go into it, both in production and post-production. So yeah, right now we've been crowdfunding for 3 weeks. We are now entering the last week. So next Monday, by the end of the day, it's going to be the last day um, to support the film. And we need to get to 80% to get the funds. Right now we are 53%. If we don't get to 80%, everything goes away, all the funds. So obviously I'm hoping for 100%, but 80% is the goal right now. So yeah, if anybody out there is even just sharing is very helpful, but any donation is also appreciated, even $10, anything helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really recommend all of the listeners here to donate or share your crowdfunding website, which I will link in the show notes, because I just feel it in my heart that this film will help out this community specifically and bring light to so much trauma that often isn't seen, and it deserves to be seen. So I highly recommend us all supporting you in your film, and I really want to see it happen.
Thank you. Yeah. And if you guys are also wondering, I know sometimes short films get made and then they just don't, like, people wonder, right, where do they go? Because we don't see short films on Netflix or so. So the idea for this film is to go to film festivals. There's film festivals all over the world, where there's the festival and then there's panels. And then conversations can happen. My idea too is also I have partnered with some associations, or I'm in talks with them, where I want to do some special screenings where we could have then a panel after with organizations that deal with ectopic pregnancies or pregnancy loss, and then we can have those conversations too. So this film is definitely not just, it's going to go out there. The idea is for it to go around the world.
Yes, I love the idea of panel discussions. That's just amazing. There's been so many times where I've wanted to take this awareness to the next level, and I don't know where to start. There's so many rules and regulations around ectopic pregnancy, and I just feel like you're doing really good work and doing good for this world. So I really appreciate it. And is there anything else you'd like to share, a part of your story or this episode?
Um, no, I just hope that people who are listening stay with the idea they're not alone, no matter where you are in your journey. Like, no matter how much it feels that you're alone, you're never alone. And there's so many women out there that are going through the same, and so many people that if you reach out, they want to be there for you. So when you're going through something like this, try not to isolate yourself, and just know that there's somebody there, me included. If anybody is going through this and you guys want to reach out, I'm always here to talk about this, because I think that's very important.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, because I've felt it in my own experience that I can't tell some close friends, or when I did, it was months later, after the time frame where I really needed support. And they were actually sad that they weren't able to be there for me. So, if you're going through this, share it with your friends, because your friends want to know and want to support you however possible, whether it's through a text message or maybe a meal drop off or something. Any kind of support is appreciated. And like you said, Denise, I'm always there if someone needs to reach out to me and to you. So there's always someone out there to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And one more time, just thank you for having this safe space and a platform for people to share these stories. You're also doing amazing work. And yeah, it's amazing. You should also be very proud of yourself.
Aw, thanks,
Yeah.
Denise. Thank you for listening to the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast. If you are looking for additional resources, head to ectopicpregnancysupport.com to learn more about my exclusive online support chat. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. See you next time.